All right, so we're here with Bob Metcalfe and doing an interview to ask him a little bit more about the South by Southwest Accelerator and his role as an MC, as well as some of his thoughts about startups and entrepreneurship in general. So to start off, I would love to hear a little more about your involvement in the Accelerator this year and what your role as an MC is going to look like.
So South by Southwest has really picked up on this entrepreneurship startup thing a few years ago. And there's a bunch of activities there, including an entire startup village, they call it, which is at the Hilton. So there's a whole floor of startups, and if you're interested in startups, it's definitely a place to go. But one of their activities, which they started months ago, was collecting startups submitting pitches. And then they judge them, and now they have like the semifinals and the finals. And so the judges then come for the semifinals and the finals. And it's held in one of the ballrooms of the Hilton, and there's there's two people on stage, actually two MCs. This is all day, so the two MCs are on stage all day, sort of introducing people, getting them off stage, getting them on stage, and the second day, the finals. I'll be the MC for the finals, which is not a judging role and it's not a speaking role. It's a manage the stage kind of thing, which I know how to do, by the way, so I'm well chosen for this job.
Are there other MCs, or is this a solo job for you?
There are others. There's two the first day and two the second day. Mr. King, Bruce or Brad King, he's my co-MC. So he's like a journalist, and I'm like the professor. We're like
the tag team duo.
Co-MC, yeah, exactly.
Very nice. So have you attended the South by Southwest Accelerator before? I think you said last year you were a judge.
I was a judge last year, and I can't even remember the year before, but I think I was involved then too.
Okay.
But so last year I was one of the judges. So the room has a stage, and then there's two rows of judges, and then there's spectators, lots of spectators. And then the companies come up one at a time, and they pitch their hearts out, and then the judges all grade them, and then we share the grades, and then winners are announced. And,
okay.
Lives are crushed, and others get really happy.
Yeah.
It's really fun, actually, and it's fun to watch new ideas sort of floating up and being tested to see whether they're any good. And you're also, you're not only judging the ideas, you're judging the teams, and how they explain it, how they put it together, how they sell it.
Sure. So, and I looked at the judging criteria because I was curious how they were going to be judged. And it said 4 categories: creativity, potential, functionality, so usability of the interface for the idea, and then the team. And I would like to hear from you, do you think that one of these is more important than the others, or that the one thing really stands out when you're looking at a new startup?
Well, that is a perennial question in innovation and venturing, which is in the venture capital world where I spent 10 years until recently. The argument is, do you invest in teams? Do you invest in technologies? Do you invest in markets? And then there are the VCs who say, oh, we invest in markets, we invest in teams. So there's 3 kinds of VCs, and then there's the VCs who say, oh no, it's got to be all 3. And it does have to be all 3 in a way. But some people say that if you have a really good team, they will eventually succeed even if the market turns out to not be there. They'll find a new market.
Sure.
And then there's others who say, you can take a B team and send them into a good market and they'll succeed. So I don't think we can resolve that question today. But those are, so in the 4 categories here, the one that jumped out at me as the most important one was the team of those 4. And there, of course, that they express the idea, so you only see the idea through the team. So it's not as if you can imagine if the same idea were presented by a completely different team. I assure you, it would come across as a completely different idea, or you might possibly come to dramatically different conclusions based on how it was presented by the team.
Sure, makes sense. Okay, so if you could give one piece of advice to a group who was going to be presenting at any accelerator really, but for South by Southwest Accelerator in particular, what advice would you want to give them before diving in and doing these pitches?
Well, you should plan on practicing. You should not memorize your talk. You should forget that you've ever given the talk before, because remember, the people in that room haven't heard your talk before, and that's an easy thing for people to forget.
Yeah.
It's one of the negatives of rehearsing too much, is you begin to forget what you told these people, and then you skip over it, and then they didn't hear it because they weren't there the last time you said it. So you gotta remember. So that is an argument in favor of memorizing, but you never want to. My advice is you never want to memorize the words. You just want to get a checklist of the concepts you want to touch on, and make your words up on the fly, because it's much easier to do, and it's less boring.
Sure.
So it helps to have a good idea, and it helps to present evidence. So you want to collect evidence. If you say it's a big market, I want to know what your evidence is. If you say this is really cool technology that you have mastered, I want to see it work, or I want evidence that it works. I want you to present evidence that it works. One of the difficulties of judging such contests is there's no opportunity to do what the venture capitalists call due diligence. So when an entrepreneur says, I visited 9 customers and they all said they'd buy 10 of these, and you go, oh, well, that's evidence. Except in the venture capital world, you would call those 10 customers and you'd find out that 8 of them don't even remember the meeting.
Sure.
So not enough time to do due diligence is one of the defects of these contests.
Sure.
But in any case, you want to present evidence even, well, now especially you want to present evidence because no one has time to check.
Right, right. So now, you said something, I'm wondering, do they give the same pitch, because it starts with a large group, I think it's 48, and then the second day it's narrowed down, and then finalists are chosen. Are they pitching the same thing twice, and are they the same judges, different judges? How does
different
that
judges,
work?
but I believe they're the same pitches. I don't actually know this, but sometimes I don't know the specifics here, but in some accelerators they have like a 6-minute and a 3-minute. So for the finals, they ask you to do it in 3 minutes. No, it's the other way around. For the semis, they actually do it in 3 minutes, but then when you're a finalist, then they want the 6-minute version. I don't know if that's true in this case.
Okay.
What I like to do, which they never let me do, is that the whole team comes to the stage, and then I get to pick which one of them gives the pitch.
Oh man, that would be nerve-wracking.
Well, it would motivate every member of the team to learn the pitch, right? Because they might get chosen, and that's a good thing, because you want, especially if it's only a 6-minute pitch, you want, when you're building a company, you don't want the various people in the company to have different views of what you're doing.
Right.
You want them all to sing from the same hymnal. So insisting that they all be able to give the 6-minute pitch, that might be a good discipline.
Yeah.
So I wonder if Mark Zuckerberg requires every employee of Facebook to be able to give Facebook 6-minute pitch. Of course, there's thousands of them now.
Yeah, I was going to say now that might be more challenging. You mentioned the panelists are all top-notch, and so I'm wondering, as we hone in and talk about the accelerator specifically, as a venture capitalist or someone with a background, do you feel that the South by Southwest Accelerator produces good or gathers good talent and startups that it's a good place to look for potential investing? Do you feel like South by's done a good job of that for this event?
Well, yes and no. So yes, in that I thought very highly of the finalists last year. I thought they were really good. They had whatever process was used worked, and so the good stuff floated to the top. The bad news is there's 500 people watching it, and in investing, it's not good when there's 500 people interested in the same investment you are, because your goal is to make the investment for you to make the investment, not these other people. So being in the same room with 500 other people seeing a proposition is, you really want to meet with them privately and try to woo them.
Right.
So that's the negative.
All right, the last thing, parting advice for South by Southwest as a whole. I know you mentioned earlier navigating the schedule and whatnot, but for folks, especially for folks, because you're now an Austinite since 2011?
2 years now.
2 years now. People who are coming from out of town, What's your parting advice for them when they're coming into town, going to South by? What would you tell them?
Come. It's a great party. Make reservations early, because I think it's too late actually. And if you can find a place, find it. And it doesn't matter if it's a little bit out of town, because your model should be you come into 6th Street and stay there for the duration. You're not gonna, I know there are people who are a little further away from, but no one, you're gonna stay on pretty much 6th Street in the general vicinity of Hilton the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
You might range up 6th Street all the way here to Lamar. You might go up to the university. Some of you are going to go up to the university, but that's 13 blocks.
Sure.
And if I have students who won't walk for 15 minutes, you won't walk 13 blocks, although you should. And there's enough going on in the general vicinity of the Hilton where you really don't have to go very far.
Mm-hmm.
There's party after party after party. And I recommend these parties highly. I'd recommend that you not go alone, because you'll feel lonelier than usual, surrounded by all these people who seem to know each other and are having a great time. So I'd go with friends if I were you. Have I mentioned that it's a big party?
You have.
But it's not just a big party. So the South by Southwest people are serious adults about curating these events, and there's value in them. So one of the difficulties is making the transition in your head from party to actually sitting there listening to Elon Musk, who's our current innovation rock star.
Mm-hmm.
And I assure you, you would like to listen to everything he says. And so you got to shed the party mentality long enough to listen to whatever Elon Musk has to say. And it's not just Elon Musk, there's hundreds of people who are worth listening to. So so that's a problem, making that switch back and forth between this constant party, which is great, and then the content of the interactive conference itself, which is great also.
Very good. All right, well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you at South by Southwest.